Instagram about the myths that you've heard around IVF. And you have sent me in loads of suggestions, and I have them in this box.
Got a whole hamper here, right?
Larisa has been doing some research for us about which ones really might make a difference in IVF, which ones might not do. I think it's time that we all kind of had the facts about it rather than just all the stuff that's going around on the forums and things. Okay. Right, so the first one, and this is one that you guys know that I do myself, I've said this on Instagram before, beetroots, the real thing, or the juice.
Yeah.
So I was told, and this was by a fellow IVFer, haven't seen any research on it, but to drink half a cup of this every day to help the lining of the womb.
Interesting. Okay, so there is truth to that, I'm pleased to say. Beetroot is actually really good for you. So not only does it contain antioxidants, which, as you'll find when we talk about a lot of the food that's mentioned here, generally does, and antioxidants are important for your general health as well as helping you to get pregnant. But beetroot in particular contains something called nitrates. They form nitric oxide within the body, and this is really important when it comes to dilating vessels. So when your friend mentioned that it has an impact on the lining of the womb, what she means is that actually the blood flow will start to, or theoretically should improve around the womb because the vessels are being dilated.
Oh, so good. My first one, there's a point to it. Especially it tastes a bit like mud, so at least I know there's a reason behind it. Next one is avocados. Like, you see this everywhere in fertility.
So one of the top reasons why is that they're a really, really good source of essential fatty acids and monounsaturated fats. So these are the good fats. And why are these fats good and important? Well, because they lead to a balanced diet, and you need fat in your body in order to help create tissue and also to help with various different bodily processes and functions. And the other thing to say about avocados is vitamin E. They're a really good supply and source of vitamin E, which we believe has a positive impact on endometrium. So it's what we were talking about before, the effect on the lining of the womb when it comes to implantation.
Brazil nuts. I was told to eat some of these every single day during the cycle.
I would say this is a really good one, in particular for the men out there, okay?
I've never heard of it for men. That's
yes,
so
good. So it really helps to improve how good the sperm are, so how well they swim, how well they're built. So it's a really one to try and incorporate into your man's diet. The other reason why Brazil nuts are also really important is that they are actually a really, really mild anticoagulant. So what does that mean? A blood thinner. Potentially, when it comes to implantation, things such as microclots can actually form and interfere with that, and it could be a cause behind some women's miscarriages.
Yeah, so loads of the people watching about.
Right, yes, it's a really, really common problem. So taking a mild anticoagulant, which is natural, like the Brazil nuts, could actually be of benefit. But
the next one is nettle tea, which I hadn't heard of before you guys suggested it. So what's that? What's the deal about that?
Yeah, so nettle contains chlorophyll and it contains other micronutrients. It can help to regulate the adrenal glands. So the adrenal glands are basically sit within our tummy on top of the kidneys, and they're important because they are in charge of producing stress hormones. So if you're taking something,
you've got more than enough of that during IVF.
Absolutely, and we'll talk about stress later because that's a huge topic really in itself. But the fact that you can take something that will hopefully help to regulate those stress hormones and keep them in check is of course of real benefit.
So I guess this could be a way of balancing how much caffeine you're having, but what is the deal with caffeine?
What I usually advise my patients is to stick to about 1 cup of coffee a day if they have to have it.
At 1 in the morning when you wake up.
Right, I mean I know I need that, so for me to expect anyone else not to do that, but just be mindful because too much caffeine again can increase the amount of stress hormones.
Coconut water. I see a lot of people mention about drinking this around egg retrievals and embryo transfers.
So coconut water, generally speaking, is good to drink whether you're trying to have a baby or not, because it's got a lot of really useful nutrients inside of it. You know, taking it after an egg collection, for example, in order to stay on top of your hydration is a good idea. Also, if you're losing a lot of fluid, so you might be having diarrhea as a secondary reaction perhaps to some drugs, that's a really good drink to have.
Okay, the next one is like a massive buzzword in fertility. All you guys would have heard of pomegranate juice. People saying that they're drinking it every day during their 2-week wait.
Look, as with all these things that we're discussing, they're not necessarily, going to be the cure and the magic formula, but they all have benefits. It helps to improve blood flow to the ovaries, to the lining of the womb. But when it comes to the men, it can actually help to improve the blood flow to their testicles, but also the penis. So for any men who are suffering from erectile dysfunction, this can be a real benefit. So rather than taking Viagra, give them a pomegranate.
Pomegranate cocktail before you get frisky.
Exactly, right?
Right, the next one. This has got green top, should have blue top. Full fat milk. I read drinking that every day
can help. So I'd say actually this is one of the more controversial ones. There's two sides to this myth, really. Fat is naturally attracted to hormones such as progesterone and estrogen, which of course we have in our bodies. So by removing the fat, when you drink skim milk, you're also removing a lot of the hormones that could be of benefit, and you're keeping more of the androgens or male related hormones and things like insulin, like growth factor, which may not necessarily be of benefit. Okay, the other reason why full fat milk might be better than skim milk is because whey protein is added to skim milk in order to improve the color and the flavor. In animal studies, it's been shown that potentially this has got what we call androgenic effect on a person, so masculinizing effect on a person, because again there's a bigger concentration of male hormones. However, milk generally contains a lot of calcium, which is really, really good for us, not just for our bones, which most of us know about, but in particular when it comes to fertility, for helping the embryos to grow and for helping the sperm to be motile and to whiz around, basically, and get to the egg as they should. So milk is good for you. Now, when it comes to making the decision between whether to necessarily have the milk that we're traditionally used to, that's a little bit harder. Cows are treated with a lot of hormones in order to make them produce large quantities of milk. And when cows are treated with all those hormones, they filter down the food chain. And they get concentrated within us when we drink the milk. And so for conditions where you may have an imbalance in your hormones, so things like endometriosis and polycystic ovaries in particular, it can actually make the whole situation a lot worse. And there's another reason why cows-based milk may not be the best for some people, and that's because it contains this A1 casein protein, which you might have heard about. So there's some versions of milk being made now which have excluded this protein, and that's because this protein can act a little bit like gluten in the diet, and it can cause inflammation within the gut and around the body. So what I would say is be a little bit careful with milk depending on what your situation is like. I'd say if you do suffer from any hormone related conditions, your best option is to seek other milk alternatives.
Okay, the next biggie is pineapple. I was told to divide this into 5 slices and have a slice every day during the first 5 days of the 2-week wait. But then also I've heard people say if you have too much it can cause miscarriage, and it actually becomes like kind of a stressful thing. You feel like you should have it but not having too much. So what should we do?
I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I think the key with any of these things is moderation. Okay, because you don't want to be overdoing it with any of these foods. But the reason why pineapple is particularly good and branded a bit of a superhero is that it contains this enzyme called bromelain, and bromelain is known to be a pain reliever. It's an anti-inflammatory, which is quite important when you're trying to get pregnant, in particular for conditions like endometriosis, and you're right, has some blood thinning associations as well. So could potentially help with implantation, where you want to make sure that the risk of microclots forming around the blood vessels is low. But the other reason why the pineapple is of benefit is that it contains manganese, and manganese is another important nutrient that you should be having, because it can help to activate enzymes that actually upregulate certain hormones in both men and women. So it's got a couple of beneficial effects there, but the way that you should eat it is fresh and raw, ideally, so not from a can where there's a lot of syrup and there's a lot of sugar. Ideally not cooked either, because you kill the nutrients within that. So fresh and raw, and also try and eat the core if you can as well, because that's where the concentration of the goodies
what I heard, everyone says about the core
mainly is. Exactly. So pineapple is a goodie.
Okay, I'm going to try that. Well, we've covered all the ones that you guys have sent in to us. If you've got any more like random myths and stuff that you have heard that you've been trying, leave them down below. If you want to catch up with Larisa, if you go over to the Channel Mum forum, she's always on there so she can answer your questions. Thank you for watching. Bye.
See you soon.